All right. Good morning. I think it's still morning. We'll go ahead and get started. I want to thank everybody for coming and participating and being a part of today's leadership session. The topic or the title is the laws and truths of a self-aware leader. And so I've taken three books. So this is the first time I've done this. I've taken three books that are written, and I'm kind of combining and teaching from those three books. And so y'all bear with me as I walk my way through that, and hopefully you will walk away with some things that will help you become a better leader. One of the things when you're doing a leadership lesson that you have to try to do when you're preparing is think through who all is going to be in the room. So you may have the person that's just out of college and their first job and never led, or in our case, maybe even someone in college, all the way to C-suite and everyone in between. And you want to make the lessons apply to everyone. So that's why I chose to kind of combine three books. If you want to know what I'm going to talk about up front, first of all, is about the self-aware leader. What is a self-aware leader, and why is that important? And then number two is simple truths, things that you need to know as simple truths about leadership from a servant leadership standpoint. You'll find that most of the time when I'm talking about leadership, I'm speaking of it from a servant leader standpoint versus self-serving leader. And then the last one is the irrefutable laws of leadership, where just talk about some things that if you understand these laws, work through these laws and all of that, then you'll be, I think, become a better leader. So we'll get started with that. When you think of leadership, I'm very interactive, so please interact. When you think of leadership, what is the most, or who, or whatever is the most important thing you must lead? Anybody want to guess at that? Yourself, yes. Thus, the self-aware leader. To be a good leader, the first thing that you have to learn to do is to lead yourself and lead yourself well. There have been more teams, individuals that have been sabotaged because of a leader not being able to successfully lead themselves. And so when you start thinking about being a self-aware leader, what's one of the first things you need to do? And that is, anybody in here ever done a SWOT analysis? Most people have done that as a business or over an organization. You do a SWOT analysis, and for those of you who may not know what that is, a SWOT analysis is simply your strengths, what you do well, your weaknesses, things that you can work to improve, your opportunities that you as an individual can seize or take advantage of to become better, and then threats. What are those things out there that very well may keep you from reaching your full potential? As a business, you should do that, but most people don't think about doing that from a personal standpoint. So think about being a self-aware leader. Where would something like that come into play? If your strength, and I always like to do things funny and to kind of make the point. How many have ever watched American Idol? Right? Everybody that's on that show, when it's first coming on, I don't watch the show, but I do watch the opening part. Because you don't get no better than that. But every one of them is what? The next American Idol, right? Most of them have not done a SWOT analysis. Most of them do not understand that singing is not their strength, right? So to have someone that goes out for American Idol and you see some of them and it's like, are they joking? Are they plants? Do they think they can really sing? We all do that. We may not do it at American Idol, but I think we can do that in our day-to-day life. We can think that there's something about what we do as a leader that everybody else reacts the same way to that that we react to that person who sings. So you have to make sure you kind of make that laundry list of, hey, what's my strengths? What am I good at? What things that if I do these things more and do them more often will help me grow as a leader? What things that I do bad or poorly that if I keep doing them is going to hurt me as a leader? So it's not just knowing your strengths, because you need to know your weakness. And then opportunities is what's out there that would give me the opportunity to improve or be better. And then last but not least, as I said, threats. And what are some of the threats you think potentially could be for you as a leader? If you're working to become a better leader right now, and we'll start at the backside, what are some of the things you think could be threats to you? Y'all, well, I can tell y'all all have done a SWOT, right? My threat is I hate, I can multitask and I can do a lot of things, but I hate detailed like minutia. So if I don't have people around me to help me with the detail, that's a threat to me being successful. So one of the things I have to make sure I do is I keep people around me who can remind me of the details, keep me on task on the details. So you see what I mean by that? Another opportunity though is, what would be an opportunity, since nobody wants to talk about the threat? What would be an opportunity? What do you think is an opportunity for you guys? All right, y'all need to think about
Okay,
that.
can I
Go ahead.
let's stop. So can I go back to threat? Would a threat be, would this be considered a threat? Leading people that have a very different personality or mindset than you do?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So the point was, if you couldn't hear that, was because we have some people online. If you're leading a team and there's a personality conflict, and think about this: if you're a very micromanaging type of leader, and the person that you're leading is a very loose, hey, I want freedom, I don't want to be micromanaged, what happens in that situation? There's conflict continuously, and vice versa. Some people like to be managed and led very hands-on and close, and they need a lot of information and detail, especially when they're young employees or young team members or new to their job, and you're a very hands-off person. That becomes a threat. Okay, and so you have to identify your threats, you have to identify your opportunities, your weakness, and your strengths. If you don't, you will have something called blind spots. Okay, everybody in here drives, old enough to drive at least. And how many times have you been in a car and you got ready to get over, and you don't really take time to look over your shoulder, you just glance and get over, and then all of a sudden there's a car right beside you? Well, the car was there the whole time, but when you changed your angle or you moved your car, it became visible. We all have blind spots as leaders, as individuals. I don't care who you are, you have blind spots, okay? And you need people in your life who are willing to help you with those blind spots. You need people who are willing to speak up. So as a leader, if you're going to be a self-aware leader who is reaching his full potential, you also have to create an environment where what? Your team, people you lead, can give you feedback. Or somewhere down the road, we'll get to this, but can upward coach, peer coach, same thing down. You have to be able to do that. So I don't care who you are, you have to have a blind spot. I was reading something where this guy said, well, with technology and all of these things, there is no such thing as a blind spot. And he said, because if you move, it's not a blind spot. I said, but when you move, if I move from here, if I'm here, my blind spot is here. If I move here, my blind spot's just here. Me moving does not remove the fact that I have a blind spot. It may change my blind spot, and I may fix this thing in my leadership window. But when I fix this, I now create another area. So I have to continually be what? Changing and learning and talking and communicating. Two things about leaders, real quick, on the self-aware leader that I wanted to hit today is, and see if y'all agree with this. Number one is we don't see ourselves as we see others. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Go ahead, please.
So I was just thinking about that before you mentioned it, but is it the same thing as saying we hold other people to a different standard than we hold ourselves?
Guess what number two is, Whitney? We are harder on others than we are ourselves. So those two are kind of like a self-aware leader. You nailed it. As a blind spot, when we see other people, anybody ever seen somebody do something, you're like, can't believe they do that. But you don't do that exact thing, but you got your thing. Y'all know what I'm talking about? You got your thing that you do continuously, but you have good intentions. So you judge yourself on your good intentions, right? But you judge them on what they actually did. And so as a self-aware leader, you become aware of the fact that, okay, I have to walk in a place of grace and mercy. I have to assume the best. How do you get out of that? How do you get out of not seeing others the way you see yourself, or not being hard on them? And I think it comes down to your ability to walk in a place of what I call grace and mercy. I assume the best in people. How many of you ever heard people say, trust is earned? Right? That's a true statement, right? But how many of you have lived your life as a person of trust, and then you get a new boss, a new leader, and you feel like you have to start over? How frustrating is that? Whoa. I have lived a life of trust for 40 years. And now you're telling me because I got a new boss, he doesn't trust me, and I'm going to have to start over and prove to him again? Well, that's the way some people are, and that's the way some people lead. And you can lead that way. My philosophy, and some people don't ascribe to this, I give you trust, and I trust you until you give me a reason not to. So what happens in that case is, now that doesn't mean, now understand, that doesn't mean I'm going to give you everything. Now, if I don't know you or you're fairly new, I will give you some credit based on your prior history, your prior life, your prior experience. You'll get some street cred with me on that. But I'm not going to turn around and give you my whole organization. I'm not going to give you everything, but I will slowly begin to trust you and allow you to show me. And the more you confirm that, the more I'm going to keep giving. But I trust you up front until you give me a reason not to. Some people, it takes them one time for them to go, well, I can't trust them, right? And so, but we, on the other hand, when we do mess up, anybody in here ever messed up? Now, what do you expect when you mess up? Anybody tell me when you mess up and your heart was right? Now this is always with the caveat. There are people, guys, their entire intentions is to noodle you or to screw you, right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you sincerely try to do something, you try to do it the right way. You mess up. What's the first thing you expect from those who lead you?
To be forgiven.
To be forgiven. Do we have that same mindset when our team members and those we lead and those we follow mess up? No. Most of the time, we will be like, well, hey, listen, and we're landing on them. So a self-aware leader knows themselves very well, and they understand that. One guy said get to his quote. One of the most important things you can do to figure out if a leader is going to be successful is watch what he does to lead himself day by day. So if you're going to be effective as a leader, I don't care what area you're in, I don't care what your position, and I'll get to that in a moment, title is, if you're going to be successful as a leader, what's the first thing you have to do is lead yourself effectively. Key word there, lead yourself effectively. Because wherever you end up, you led yourself there. Okay, so you could be leading yourself, but you could be leading yourself on the wrong path. Somebody tell me, what are a couple things you can do to be leading yourself, to be helping yourself, that someone would say, that's the type of person that I'm willing to follow? What do you think something you could do?
Lead by example.
Lead by example, what does that mean?
Doing what you expect others to do.
Doing what you expect others to do.
It's almost like saying, instead of telling your group, go get this done, you tell them, let's go get this done.
Mm-hmm. Let us go get this done. What else? Both good answers. Anyone else?
Ask for feedback. Ask questions. How are things going? What do you like? What do you don't like? Do's
Gain.
and don'ts. Feedback so that you can learn along the way and let them know I'm trying to work with you, not against you.
Yeah. Feedback, or another way to say that is gain what? Consensus, gain ownership, get them involved with the process. And as you do that, that shows them that you're what? Hey, I'm part of the team. And that transitions to the simple truth number one is, I believe that the most effective way is to be a servant leader. Now, some people hear that and they get worried because they're concerned that that may mean I let people get away. I'm not stern. I'm not driven. I'm not anything. That's two different words, guys. There's a servant piece and there's a leadership piece. But regardless of whether you say self-serving leader, servant leader, positional leader, forward-thinking leader, transformer, it doesn't matter. What's two things that every leadership model has to have? And this is, I don't care what type of leader you are, you're leading for a couple reasons. That's results and relationships. Results and relationships. So the simple truth number one, servant leadership, in my opinion, is the best way to maximize results and relationships. And so when you hear that term, servant leader or servant leadership, everybody always jump to like just the servant part. I'm going to talk about the servant part, but the leadership part is the results. Okay? You can't be a servant leader to the point that you don't get your job done. You can't be a servant leader to a point where you don't get the results. If you're in a leadership position or you're in a leader, you're doing that to get something done. You're doing that to drive results, to have an outcome that you desire. So the first part of servant leadership is the leadership part. Now that first word is, how do you go about getting those results? How do you go about getting those results? I believe it's through servant leadership. And what does that mean? What does servant leadership mean? It means that I come get in the trenches with you. And you guys gave the best answers. I get in the trenches with you. I lead by example. I show you the way. I teach you how to do it. I don't say, hey, go get that done, and not have any concern over whether or not you're ready to get it done or not. So a servant leader is one who understands, ultimately, I am here to get things done. That's my job. If you're in a position where you have a team, you have a goal, you can't be at the expense of the results, be in relationship. But I can promise you this, you can take the most successful leader in the world. At the moment he does not have relationships, his success will come to an end eventually. Now we know in Tuscaloosa, Nick Saban, you've heard people talk about how hard he is to work for and how this and that. Go ask any of the players he leads about what they think. See, most of the time when you see, now I'm not saying Nick Saban is a servant leader, but I'm saying he's still in his sternness. What has he done? He has gotten to the point where even though he's a driver, that's probably an understatement of the century, he still understands that he cannot get the results without the relationship. And if you go back and look, the players love him because they see the stuff he do to help them maximize their potential. So that's his way. Nick Saban's way of serving is actually to make sure his players have the best facilities, the best nutrition, the best opportunity to get drafted. They have the best of everything that he can directly give them. So in that way, he is serving them, even though he would not be what you call your traditional servant leader. There's others who lead and serve in a different way. So I want to tell you about 4 things of, I skipped through, there's 4 quick things I want to make sure you guys have this. So I'm going to circle back on being a self-aware leader. Just I won't get too deep into this, but learn fellowship. This is circling back up to be a better leader of yourself. Learn how to follow if you're going to be successful. Most successful leaders have had an opportunity to do what? Follow successfully. And anybody ever had a leader that had never been in a position like where they were just giving something and they've never had to lead people? Anybody ever had that experience? How did it go? I got some yeses. How did it go versus having someone who has kind of learned how to follow? Why is that important? Because it teaches you, if you learn, it teaches you to remember those relationships and how you felt when your manager was making those decisions. Then when you get in that position, you're conscious of the impact you can have. Number 2 is develop self-discipline on leading yourself. Develop self-discipline. And I don't know if I need to dig any deeper into that one. If you have any questions on that, come see me. But yes, it's mission critical. That one goes without saying. The next one is practice patience. Practice patience. Anybody ever followed an impatient leader? Now there's 2 things I want to make sure that you don't misunderstand. There is visionary leaders, and then there's impatient leaders, which are 2 different things. And if you're not committed to following a leader, a visionary leader is impatient to you because you're not keeping up, right? But as a leader, if you're the leader and you're visionary, what do you need to learn to do if you're going to reach your maximum potential? You can be the most visionary leader in the world. You can have the greatest dreams, the greatest ideas. You actually have got a cure for cancer. But if you don't have a team to implement that, what good is it? Right? If you don't have people who can take that vision from your head and your sheet of paper to reality, what good is that? So as a leader, you have to always remember that you have to learn to be patient with the people you're leading. Why? If they were where you were, they'd be you. That makes sense? You know, at my church, my worship leader, occasionally we talk, and we talk about when he's leading worship. So whatever he's experiencing during worship, they're not there yet. You're leading them. So if I want you to experience here, and I'm standing here, you don't experience it because I'm leading. So if I want you, I have to continue to move to give you room to step up. And if I'm not patient, what will I do? I'll leave you behind. And so make sure that you're aware of your patience with those who you're leading. And there's another whole 2-hour lesson behind that one. And then last but not least, seek accountability. Seek accountability. If you're going to be a self-aware leader, seek accountability and be willing to be coachable. Be willing to have people in your life that can speak into your life and say, hey, what are you doing? I mean, why do you think that's the right thing? I'll use a Bible story that most people don't know. You know about King David. If you know any scripture, King David had an affair with Bathsheba. But if you read the beginning of it, it starts off with, in a time when kings go off to war, David stayed home. David lost accountability to his soldiers. He sent them off to war where he was supposed to be leading. And while he was at home, instead of being where he was supposed to be and being accountable to his men in war, he was at home and he went up on the rooftop and saw Bathsheba. Bathsheba bathed there every day, guys. And one of David's counselors knew that David went to the roof every day. He just made it where it happened at the same time. He was set up, but he wouldn't have been set up if he had been what? Accountable to his team. So we have to understand that our accountability to our team, to our family, to our friends, or whatever makes us a better leader. So be self-aware of that. Now, a couple things on switching back over. Sorry about that. I felt like I needed to go back to that. The servant leader, what are you looking for? Results and relationships. Guys, it's not either or. I see a lot of leaders who struggle with the either or mentality, where it's like they feel like I can't be in relationship with these people because I'm trying to get results. And they choose one or the other. Then you have others who think that I can't, get the results without the relationship. It's both and. It's not either or. It's both and. And you have to be moving the degree of your relationships with your team up at the same time you move the results that you're seeking. So make sure that as you're leading people, that you are willing to have the relationships you need to have. And my team has heard me say numerous times, I do not try to treat people equal. I treat them fair. And so in doing that, when you think about that, why that matters, if it's equal, every time you do something for somebody, what do you have to do? You have to do a tally, and now you're trying to find an opportunity to give this person an opportunity that they may not be ready for, or they may not have earned. But if you're trying to be equal, you'll give it to them. Well, what happens to this person who's working their butt off, putting in extra time, stepping up, learning more about what they're doing? They're waiting because they're going, I'm going to earn this opportunity. I'm going to get the results we're looking for. And so if you're worried about the relationship from the standpoint of, oh my God, I don't want anybody not to like me, or I got to be equal, then you won't be fair. And fair is always a lot easier to administer than being equal. You just can't keep up with it. Don't raise your kids that way. Don't lead your team that way. Be fair to them, but not necessarily equal. I'll pause for a second because the next part is kind of a little different lesson. Anybody have any questions, comments that, hey, Martin, go back and hit this or talk about this? Again, a little clarification on anything? All right.
Do you have any suggestions?
Go ahead.
Sorry, it takes me a minute.
No, you're fine.
Do you have any suggestions when you have someone that you are leading that they view something as unfair that you view as fair, and how to handle situations like that?
Well, quick sidebar, ABCs of conflict, I shared with my team a week and a half ago, is you acknowledge the situation. In other words, if someone feels that way, you bring them in and say, hey, tell me why you feel that way. What's going on? Why do you feel like I've been unfair to you? And you listen to them, because what happens a lot of times when that happens is someone else actually comes and tells you that someone else said this, right? ABC is not always the person who's telling you isn't the person who felt that way. So you get that side of the story. So the first thing you need to do is acknowledge it. And then the B is balance. Bring in, get both sides of the story and present what? Your side of the story. I had a meeting this morning with one of my team members, and I said some things, but as we kept talking, the person asked for clarification. What I was meaning to be absolutely 100% positive for the future had come across as if I was saying that that person had done something wrong. And I was saying, no. I think your future's bright, and I want you to think here, not here. You've not done anything to think here. There's nothing you've said here. But what I want you to do, because you get some new roles and responsibilities, is don't let the newness draw you back in. That makes sense? Because sometimes when you get something new, what do? And if you're leading, you have to be careful not to get where? In the weeds. So as we talk through that, but in that conversation that came out because no one was trying to be offensive or anything like that. And then the C of that is create an opportunity for yourself. That person, Jennifer, were to come to you and say, hey, I feel like you were unfair, blah, blah, blah. Try to find a way to create an opportunity for them to show whatever they think they missed. You try to create a solution for you and or your other team members. The quickest way to gain leadership, position, authority, etc., is solving a problem. So anytime you have an opportunity to solve a problem, it's the greatest way to do that. So anyone else have a question? All right, the last part is probably the things that have probably helped me be the leader or served as the foundation to help me become the leader that I am. Always learning, need to get better, and will continue to get better. But the laws, irrefutable laws of leadership, have kind of served as my foundation in my view of leadership. And so when you think about irrefutable laws, John Maxwell has 21 of them. And ironically, he wrote 21 and then he came back and realized, some of those are subsets. And then he rewrote the book and combined a couple and added 2 more. So, but 21 Laws of Leadership, you can find that book, and that's where I'm pulling from. The first thing I want all of us to understand about leadership, first of all, there are no magic bullets. No, there is 0 magic bullets. No matter what I've talked to you about, hopefully some of it has been good. Some of the things I've said, some of you who have a complete open slate and you've not had any leadership training, you've never been in a leadership position per se, man, you may take 90% of what I say. Some of you, man, you've been leading people successfully for 15, 20 years. You may only take one thing from what I say. So this is not a catch-all. It's just this is information that you take. And what I've found is you learn to lead based on the task, the circumstance, and the situation. So you need to make sure that you have a vast library of information in which to pull from when you lead. So when I come to the 21 laws of leadership, the main thing I want us to walk away with is that leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. Leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. So if you're if you're going, well, I'm not really a leader, wrong. I guarantee you, somebody out there, somewhere, you're able to influence. Maybe your kids, maybe a coworker, maybe a friend, maybe anyone. If you can influence, then you're a leader. Some of you use your social media as what? A way to what? Influence people. Well, think about some of the crazy stuff that happens on social media. They call them influencers, but the reality of it is they're leading people to what? There's little teenage girls that they get on there and say, oh, puts lipstick on, and every other teenage girl out there does what? Goes and buys that lipstick, or goes to their parents and say, buy that lipstick. So understand that that's where it starts. Now, the first law of leadership is the law of the lid. The law of the lid. And I'm not going to get into all the details that he goes into in terms of what he talks about, but the law of the lid, think about what it says right off the bat. Lid. Think of a trash can, if I can give you an example. Every leader has a lid. If you're in here today, I don't care where your title is, I don't care, you can be at the bottom, you can be at the top, positionally wise, you still have a lid. You understand that there are people who are under you or under me that have greater leadership potential. They have a greater lid than I do. And anyone that's been on my teams or in the churches I've led or organizations I've led, I always tell them my goal is that you pass me, but I'm not going to make it easy. I'm going to always be raising my lid. So what is this? This is a lid, right? Now this lid fits well on this cup, but it also does what? It caps the capacity of what I can put in here. Okay, so you think of yourself as a cup. This big? Or is it this big? Or you're capping a trash can? Or you cap a lid on a dumpster? Are you the lid on a 100-gallon container? What is your lid? Every person in this room has one. And your lid will determine your capacity to lead. Now, you can see at times people have a lid and you'll have two people and they'll start off and all of a sudden you'll see one person do this. You're like, wow, look how fast they're growing and going. And then all of a sudden you'll see this happen. And this person may do this. You watch it, whether it's in sports, you watch it, whether it's in business, everybody's lid is somewhere today, but no one's lid has to stay where it's at. Let me say it another way. Your ability to be effective as a leader has a cap on it today. If you want it to change, you can raise the lid. And you raise the lid by doing things like this. Every person that takes what's been shared today, not because I'm some great teacher, it's just because it's information that's relevant to being a leader. Every person that takes what I said today, if your lid was here when you walked into this room, your lid at least has moved. Now the question is what? Whether your lid goes back down, whether you maintain it, or whether you continue to lift it. There's no limitation on it. Most people think leaders are born. I say leadership can be learned. I think there are natural born leaders. You can go to a playground. Just throw a bunch of kids out there. One of them will say, that's my ball, and I'm taking it home. It don't even have to be their ball. It can be any other kid's ball out there. They can be the last kid to walk on that's a natural born leader, right? But for us as adults, it doesn't have to be that way. As an adult, we start somewhere, but we determine whether we raise our lid or not. How do you raise your lid, guys? How do you think you raise your leadership lid?
Applying the information that's given to you and stretching your capacity.
Yes. And I call that wisdom. You can get information all you want. Wisdom is applied knowledge or information. So gaining wisdom in a certain area or a certain situation or a certain capacity can raise your lid. What other ways can you do it?
Accepting challenges,
Accepting challenges. What do you mean by that?
just taking on things you've never done before,
Yeah.
trying to reach a different goal.
Yeah, I love leading young people, and that category seems to be growing the older I get. There's a lot more younger people. But what always tickles me is their mindset of that they're at their capacity. If you're at your capacity, you'll never move up. And what does that mean? That doesn't mean that you're not working full time. Doesn't mean anything. You know, 2 weeks ago, I had the growth team minus marketing and training. And I was working every day. Right? Now I have marketing and training. So what does that mean? My lid went up. But if I want that lid to stay up, what do I have to do? Because if I don't let that lid stay up, the people that just got put under me, this is what's going to start happening. And I'm going to start pressuring them and start limiting them and not creating growth opportunity. One of the first things I did was start reading more on credit union marketing. First thing I did immediately. It went, so okay, I mean, I have a marketing background, but I've not done and led credit union marketing. How do I do that? Next thing I did was, okay, Bill, let's sit down. How do we restructure my team? What's the best setup for my team? So I went to him. Okay. Then the person who got that responsibility, I sat down and talked to them. People who were added to my team. What can we do to get better? Okay. So if you think you're at your capacity and you communicate that, you're not going to get future opportunities. There is no one else had every change that happened in our organization. Everybody that got new roles and responsibilities, they didn't get any more time. So raise your lid. And here's the beauty. Always be raising your lid before the opportunity comes. Don't wait till the opportunity comes. Always be working to become a better leader. And what is leadership, guys? Influence. Find something in this credit union that needs to be better. Find something in your organization that needs to be better and start trying to come up with a solution for it. And watch what happens. And it don't have to be your area of responsibility. I had opportunity to talk with a team member. Hey, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing this? Hey, let's do this. Let's try it. What did I do? I'm not doing it because I'm a servant leader and I try to be that. I'm not doing that for self-service reasons. I'm doing that because I want to come alongside this person in relationship to help them get the results that their leader is asking them to do. And in doing that, I'm satisfied because I get satisfaction in seeing my team and my teammates and my team members rise. And that's what you have to do. You have to have that mindset. You cannot help raise the lid of others and your lid not raised. So number one is training. Number two is team. You want to raise your lid? Go out and hire and find people better than you. Go out and find people that are better than you, that will push you, that will challenge you, that will make you think out of the box, that will make you at home when you go, boy, if I don't keep moving, she's going to pass me. If I don't keep going, he's going to pass me. And then be willing to come back to work the next day and do what? Pour into them so that they can pass you. That will help raise your lid, because if you're raising your lid while raising their lid, what happens when you start to fall? There is nowhere to fall. But if you raise your lid and their lid is not raised, okay? So the law of the lid, guys, it's your effectiveness as a leader. Learn to do that and you will be a difference maker. I believe that anybody familiar with the terminology church splits? When they talk about churches that, there's always these church splits out there where this pastor leaves this church and goes and starts another one. I believe the law of the lid is the number one reason churches split. As a pastor, when I look at my leadership and I look at my team, if I have people under me that have gifts, talents, and abilities, and I pour into them, they should be better than me. Why? Because they have their own set of leadership, ability, and skills and effectiveness. Now they have mine. Let me give you an example that y'all can all relate. Georgia football. What happened when Kirby Smart went to Georgia? He was successful. When Kirby Smart went to Georgia, he was immediately successful because he took all the stuff Nick Saban had taught him, plus his own personality. And the reality is, most of us don't realize this. The first couple of times we beat Georgia, we led for a grand total, I think, of 1 minute. Beat them twice. And we trailed the entire game. We won a game where we never led. There was not a second that we led the game. When we scored to win the game in overtime in the national championship game, ball game was over. Then we come back the next year, they're winning the whole game to the last minute or so. So, why? Because he took all that Saban taught him, then he added his to it. So what happened was he had his lid, and then he took Saban's lid, and now he's continuing to grow. And if Saban stops growing, he'll supplant him. But Saban doesn't stop growing. That's the law of the lid in effect, right? Leadership is not, give you a couple things. Leadership is often misunderstood when people hear that someone has an impressive title or has been assigned a leadership position. So I want you to understand, position is not leadership. Let me say it another way. Positional leaders do exist. I said that correctly. But it only buys you time on whether you become successful. So if someone gets put into a position, what do people immediately do that's on that team? Wait to see if they can lead. Some will give them immediate respect, some won't. So that title is a leadership position, but it is the lowest form of leadership. Positional influence. Now that doesn't mean that there aren't people who are in C-suites that you better do what they tell you to do, and your senior director, what they tell you to do, or your director, don't go out of here saying, well, Martin told me you're in that position, and that's like the lowest form of leadership, so I don't have to do anything. That's not what I'm communicating at all. What I'm saying is someone can be named into a position. Hopefully they've earned it. And if they have, it's not the position that makes you follow them. Right? If they've earned it, it's not. But if someone comes in and they haven't earned it, and everybody walks around with that mindset and that mentality, how hard is it for that guy or that gal to lead that team? Almost impossible. Watch this. Someone else could not have a title, but have influence and have relationship, can walk in like that. That's law number 2. Leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. If you are a person of influence, then you are a leader, no matter what your positional title is. A couple of things kind of miss around leadership. One is the positional leadership. Another one is management. People get management and leadership confused. Leadership has to do with results and vision and getting things done. Management generally revolves around processes. There are people who can manage a process but not lead people at all. You can give them a process, you can put them in a position where they do the job really, really well, but it's mostly around process and systems, and then you put people with them and they're just devastated, they're destroyed because they think because of their management and their position that they're now a leader, and that's not the way it works. Okay. Another one is most people think if you see an entrepreneur, you think what? That they're leaders. Well, some of the most successful entrepreneurs are not very good leaders. What they are is they're very visionary and they have very good ideas and they solve problems. But most of them have a team under them that does the work. So you can be a great entrepreneur, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to have a great team around you. Knowledge puffs up. You can take some of the smartest people in the world and get them out from behind their lectern and put people in front of them that they're not teaching at, and they can't do it. They can't lead. They can give you the information. They have the knowledge, but they can't lead. Now, that doesn't mean they can't learn. They're just not on knowledge alone. And then here's another one. A pioneer, in a sense, they are a leader, but a lot of times a pioneer just has the ability to think out front and be out front, but they're not really necessarily leading people. And understand when I'm saying lead, I'm talking about people. I'm not talking about being the first. I'm not talking about creating a solution only. I'm talking about you take people with you where you go. I think it's John Maxwell that says, if you think you're leading and no one's following, you're just out for a walk by yourself. So that's kind of his philosophy there. We're getting close to winding down. Here are some things that I believe factor into you being a person of great leadership. Remember, what is leadership? Influence, nothing more, nothing less. So one, I'm going to go through these rather quick. Character is mission critical to you as a leader. If you're not consistent in your character, it's hard for people to trust you. And if people don't trust you, it's hard for them to follow you. Number 2 is relationships. If you don't have character, people don't trust you, probably don't have a lot of good relationships. If you have a lot of good relationships, it gives you the ability to be a great influencer. Why? If I look around this room and all of you were on my team and all of you bought into who I am and trusted me as a leader, and then I gave you the opportunity to maximize each one of your individual talents, how much better am I? How much better of a leader am I? But what if I don't trust you and you don't trust me? Well, no matter how much talent you have, it won't help me become a better leader, and it won't help you maximize your leadership either. So the relationships, invest in relationships. I can't say that enough. Invest in people, and you will get a return. Knowledge. It is good as a leader to have knowledge. All right? When I said knowledge by itself is not a leader without knowledge probably isn't very effective either. but knowledge alone doesn't make you an effective leader. Intuition, kind of what they feel, what a leader feels. You ever been around leaders who seem to always kind of have this feeling of what's about to happen? They're able to read a room, they're able to see what's going on, sense what's going on with their team. They always kind of seem to be out front. So work on learning to read a room, to understand your surroundings and your circumstances. I taught my team a month ago on what's called EQ, emotional quotient, learning to use your emotions to help you and your team maximize their potential. I promise you, if you learn that, it will definitely help you. Experience what you've done, guys. Take time to look at your life experiences, not just your work experience, but your life experience as a whole. I look at women in the workplace and go, you guys were gifted. If you're a mom, you already been gifted with multitasking. You already been gifted with the ability to handle multiple things. Well, don't leave that at home. I mean, bring that skill set to work. And so I'm doing this, but hey, boss man, boss woman, I can do this and still do this. Okay, so understand that. Past successes, learn from your past success. I mean, learn from the things that you've done well. That's where you can acquire what are my strengths. You know, what are those things that I've done well before? Where have I seen success before? Then learn from your failures. Nick Saban says, don't waste a failure. Don't waste a failure. What can I learn from this? What could I have done different? Because what tends to happen is we run from our failures and then we hang around too long in our successes. we instead of continuing to improve. The worst enemy of being great is being good. Don't ever forget that. If you're bad, what are you going to do? You're going to work to get better. When you get to good, you can sometimes tend to coast. So if you want to be great, you have to keep pressing and keep pushing. Ability. What is your ability? I can talk to the cows come home, but I cannot sing a lick. Okay? And so it wouldn't make sense for me to go be on American Idol. Even though my mom and my grandmama told me I was good. Right? And if your mom and grandmama are the only one that has ever told you you can do anything, if you're only people who have ever said, baby, you can do that. If it's just your mom and your grandmama, find something else because they don't want to hurt your feelings. Okay? Match your abilities, guys. Look for opportunities, seriously. Look for opportunities to take the ability that you have and match it with what you do. And if you're not in a position that you get to do that at your current job, your current role, where would your ability make sense? And then try to find, how can I get there? Go talk to the person that's over that department and go, hey, what would it take for me to someday be considered for the positions in your area? Okay? Don't ever be stuck where you are because you are where you are. You know, y'all ever seen that well, I don't know if anybody goes to the mall anymore, but they have the little thing the little red dot says you are here. That's all that means is you're here. But if you don't know where you want to go, that information is worthless. But if you know where you want to go, knowing where you are is big time valuable. So know where you are, but then know where you want to go. Okay. And in closing, the best leaders are self-aware and they master the art of self-leadership. If you're going to be a successful servant leader, understand that you must achieve both great results and build great relationships. And last but not least, every one of you have a lid on your leadership. You today are some size container. Work every day to raise the lid on your leadership. And if you do that, your influence will grow. And as your influence grows, so will your opportunity. So this is just session 1 of the simple laws and truth of a self-aware leader. I appreciate you guys being in here. I told them I would stop right on time, so I appreciate it. I'll hang around if anybody has any questions or comments. For those of you who need to get back, get back. I ended at 12. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.